How do you advise that couples stay holy during a courtship engagement that is longer than they want it to be? Also, if you don't mind sharing, how do you stay holy? So my journey is a little bit different because I know me. And so I ensured that when I get with someone, I didn't want the courtship process to be long. And so I started preparing for my wedding and my marriage before there was anyone on the scene. I started saving a wedding budget. I put some money together as a wedding budget before there was anyone there, because what I didn't want to do is put myself in something that could be fatally damaging to me when it comes to temptation, because it's taken too long. So I wanted to rule out all possibilities in terms of finance being an issue, no budget being an issue. I put all of those things in place so that the only thing I would need to focus on is whether this was right. And once we both knew it, it was like, well, then what are we waiting for? And so the boundaries that we put in place are just like everybody else. We try to do everything mainly outdoors. When the weather is good, stay outdoors, go out, not try to hang around each other for too long at home. My wife was very strict anyway, so I was not doing any foolishness. She was very clear on that from day one. And that's something I prayed for, actually. I actually said, Lord, the next person I meet, I want them to be super strict with their boundaries, because I'm not in this to do foolishness. I want something to be pure. I want it to be right. I want to settle down. Doesn't mean we didn't have our challenges. We're human. We had our challenges. But we did all of the things that we encourage people to do. Try and do things outdoors. Try and meet up with other couples. Try to have your end goal from the beginning. Know how long you want to court for from when you start. Before that time comes, put money away. Decide whether you're going to do registry first and then a white wedding later. Like, do all of the practical things you can do to mitigate it being too long and therefore temptation coming in place. And then I would also say as well that if temptation is a real struggle, you need to be able to you basically need to be intentional about having some time apart. And by apart, I don't mean breaking up. I mean just where you're just communicating on the phone and just talking in that regard, or talking outdoors in person, so that you can cut off that seed from growing even further. Okay? You need to be intentional about it. And our mentor said something to us. He said, if you honor God before you get married, he will honor you in your marriage. And I just took it. I took that and I took the opposite as well. If I don't honor God before my marriage, does he have an obligation to honor me in my marriage? And so, again, just think about the fact that what you have is not going to be forever. There will come a day where you will get married, and try to do everything you can to honor God in that way. In relation to the intimacy and affection question, what things, not sexual, can you do to increase intimacy while abstaining? I definitely feel like having the conversations around those 7 F's that I gave you are really good in helping to understand the person. I'm a person that asks a lot of questions. So when I met my wife, I told her, I don't want to scare you, because some people I know, when they go on dates and they're asked a lot of questions, they feel like they've been interrogated. So I had to let her know that questions is my way of learning. And then I didn't just ask her questions, I gave her hypothetical scenarios. So I'd say things like, if you had £10,000 today that you had to spend in the next hour and you couldn't save any, what would you do with it? And when you ask certain questions like that, you get to see where people are at, and you also get to see what their priorities are. Some people might say, I'll just go shopping, I'll go and get a thing, and that's fine, that's cool. Other people might say, well, £10,000, I'll take £1,000 of that and tithe. I'd help my mum get this, and I'd help this person pay off this debt and all. And you get to see their thinking around what they think and how they manage finances. So when you ask hypothetical questions, you get to understand people's character. You get to understand people's motives as well. What if a friend did this? What if this friend said that? That was some of the questions that we asked you earlier in the interactive session. What if that person had dated this person for 6 months? Would you do this? Would you do that? And you'd be surprised that when you ask such questions, sometimes you see judgmental people come out. Okay, and you get to hear people's heart. So I would say, if you want to increase intimacy, increase the level of your conversations, have the hard conversations that need to be had, have hypothetical scenarios as well, and meet with other people, meet with other couples as well. and have people who can challenge your relationship as well, and that will help you grow in your intimacy in terms of your non-sexual intimacy together. How can you protect yourself from men who claim to want a Christian relationship but actually just want to sleep with you? So here's the thing. If you keep attracting the same type of person, check yourself. Okay? If you notice that the same type of people, the people you attract always want the same thing, they always have similar characteristics. I used to think it was them. It's not them. It's you. You need to check yourself. You need to look at things like your attachment style. You need to look at things such as your upbringing, your demeanor, how you portray yourself to others, and look at and see if there's any patterns. Okay? Because if you are attracting the wrong people, the question is actually asking, how can you protect yourself? You protect yourself by just being very firm from the very beginning and just letting them know these are my standards. But beyond that, if you're attracting the same type of people, you need to question that. And sometimes that's where you need to be, like I was saying earlier, be a bit more open, be a bit more moldable. Don't just say, oh, well, this is not what I really, might not be what you really go for. But if you're attracted to them, if you're willing to give it a chance, be open. There is no harm on going on a date, okay, or two. It's harder for the man because the man's paying in most cases, okay? But ladies, you get a free meal, you get some good company, you get to ask questions, and you learn. Hopefully you don't just go for the free meal, you actually go on a date, but you're open. And I just say to people, be open. But if you're attracting the same type of partner, then look at yourself and look at what you might be doing that's attracting that type of person. You mentioned defensiveness earlier. What can we do to improve defensiveness in a discussion, even if you feel you are in the right? It's quite defensive. I'm joking. Defensiveness is one of the hardest things to actually try and deal with. And the only way you can really deal with it is by catching yourself in that moment and practicing catching yourself in that moment and asking yourself whether what I'm about to say or what I feel like I'm going to say, is that going to be helpful or is that just going to add fuel to the fire? Nobody is saying, even if you say you are right, even if you think you are right, even if you are right, that's fine. When it comes to defensiveness, the issue is just assuming that your way is the only way, when actually, even if you are right, that person might just want to express their views, they might just want to be heard, they might just want to say something, and you have to learn to appreciate that, yes, I might be right, but that doesn't mean that I have to force my opinion on that person. I can listen to them, I can appreciate that we see things differently, and we can still mutually have a good conversation without beating one another down. There's something that we learned when we were speaking to our mentors in marriage prep, and some of you might have come across this before. It's called the 9 and the 6 phenomenon. So what he did is he put a figure 9 in between us. And he said to me, Kunlé, what do you see? And I said 9. But my wife being on the other side, what do you see? 6. It's the same thing we're seeing, just from 2 different angles. And so sometimes when it comes to disagreements where we get defensive, sometimes we have to appreciate that some people just see things differently. They've grown up with a different culture, a different background, and we have to appreciate those differences. Now, if you're right all the time, then that's an issue in itself, because no one is always 100% right. And one of the things you have to learn to do as part of mature communication is reflect on your own actions and be quick to apologize without it being brought up to you. If you only apologize when someone confronts you, you're probably not growing and learning and reflecting. You need to grow and learn and reflect yourself so that you can get to the point where you have certain conversations before that person points it out to you and you can say, you know what, I'm sorry, I got a bit defensive. I got a bit heated. I was a bit rash there. That's a sign of improved communication, which we spoke about earlier. So defensiveness is hard, but that's what I would suggest, and just keep practicing that as well. What else has come through? And if anyone has a question from the floor, please feel free to throw your hand up. We'll get a mic to you, and then there's the other mic, those on the stage. And then we'll also take your question as well. We've got a few more minutes. Okay, we've covered those. I would think that they would come in order, but they're so randomly placed. Okay. We have a question from the floor? Yes, please, go ahead.
One, two.
Do you think that it's God's will for everybody that desires marriage to be married?
God's will for everyone that desires marriage to be married. I think God wants the best for everybody. I think what God knows is best for us and what we think are best for us aren't always the same. So it might be that some people know that they're not going to get married. And typically, so some people say things like this, maybe it's just not God's will for me to get married. And typically people say that when they are struggling to find someone or they've come out of a bad situation. But actually, most people who know it's not God's will for them to get married know this from a very young age. And it's got nothing to do actually with circumstances and scenarios. So when it comes to the question about God's will, I think God's will is the best for everyone. And for some people, that is a single life. And for others, it's marriage. Do I think that everybody's going to get married? No. In the same way we know that not everyone is going to get saved as much as we would like them to get saved. But I do believe that most people who feel, maybe God just decides me to be single, usually comes from something a little bit deep-rooted. And if that is addressed, actually they may have a new desire to settle down. And as long as that desire is in them, I believe that it's God's will when that desire is in them. And if God didn't want that person to be married, I feel like that desire wouldn't be in them, but they would be wholly content with that. Does that make sense? And if there's any other questions from the floor, please feel free to raise your hand. This question, by the way, says, what do you do if your partner lies to you because they're afraid that you'll leave them if they showed their bad habit? So there's a difference between a lie and a liar. If someone is a liar, then they're building that relationship on the wrong foundation. If somebody lied, but they're honest enough to say, you know what, I shouldn't have lied. I was fearful that you were going to step away. And they're being honest about their lie, that's different. But somebody who's always lying has set a trend for what's going to come. And if somebody has lied and they've now been honest, you now have an opportunity to address with them the importance of laying the foundation of transparency for where you're going in future. But if you find out that they lied about this and then they lied about that and then they lied yesterday and they lied today, then that person is building a foundation on lies. And so I always say there's a difference between someone who tells a lie and someone who's actually intentionally lying. And if somebody genuinely just had a fear and they are eventually honest, that can be addressed. But if they're not coming out with that and they're just lying and they're hiding things from you, then that is a red flag. Do we have another question from the floor? Yeah.
Hi. Before you mentioned that you have to be physically attracted to them. What if you are not physically attracted to them, but they are showing good morals, values, everything? They're contacting you, but you're just not, like, the physical attraction is not there. Is it worth going on one date just to check the waters, or you just think, forget it?
Yeah, so I was saying earlier that a physical attraction can grow on you, but before any major commitment has been made, you need to be sure that that physical attraction is there. So you could go on a first date, you could go on a couple of dates, but I think you should be honest with where you're at. And being honest with where you're at doesn't mean turning around and saying to the guy, I'm not sure if I'm physically attracted to you. That's not what I'm saying. You can just let the person know that, you know what, I'm enjoying getting to know you, but there are some things I'm unsure of at this stage. So I'm happy for us to go on a couple of dates, but I don't want to lead you on. So let's go on a couple of dates, let's talk, and then let's have an honest conversation about whether this should or shouldn't move forward. And that's the best way to go about it, I would say. Yeah. Any other questions from the floor? I think I've got a couple things here. What are the signs that someone is attracted to you physically? That's an interesting one. I don't want to give away my secrets. I'm joking. Typically, and this is not for everyone, but typically the signs that someone is physically attracted to you is things like the intense eye contact. It can be things like physical distance, how close they stand to you when they're engaging in conversation with you. So there can be a couple signs like that. But here's the thing. The clearest sign that someone is physically attracted to you or is interested in you is they tell you. Anything other than that is your best guess at the most. Okay? So if they stare at you from now till kingdom comes, you don't know if it's because they've got something on your head, okay? Or if they're attracted to you. If they're standing right up in front of you when they're talking to you, you don't know if it's because they can't hear you properly or for another reason, okay? So you can assume all those things, but clarity is always the best thing. And you always want to get clarity before you move forward. Did we have a question from the floor? I'm mindful that time is going and we have just under a minute left. So if there's any other questions from the floor, we'll question over here, and then I'll see if there's any more here.
I typed my question, but I'm interested to know your thoughts on interdenominational relationships.
So again, it comes back to the same values and beliefs. Every denomination has different beliefs, and you've got to ensure that whatever denominations you are from, you have the same beliefs. The Lutheran belief in Norway is different from the Lutheran belief in Sweden. It's different from the Lutheran belief in Finland, but they're all Lutheran. So the chances are two people from the Lutheran church in Norway are likely going to have the same values than one from Norway and one from Sweden. So irrespective of your denominations, you want to make sure that you have the same values and beliefs and doctrine in place. That is extremely, extremely key. Yes. Time's up. I'm joking. Go on.
Why is it loud? What I was going to say is, in terms of choosing a church, what if the man and the woman are heavily involved in their churches? So, what's the play there?
So, if the man comes to the Cornerstone Church, he has to come here. No, but seriously, the two become one. And you should, when you get married, before you get married, you should have the discussion about where you're going to both call home. Whether it's going to be in their church, whether it's going to be in her church, or typically whether you're going to find a new church together. Now, for some people, when they're coming into certain things, that's not going to be the case for them. And that's the discussion that I had to have with my wife. Because I wasn't going to get up and say to the church, it's been good, but we're going over here because this is a calling, right? So she knew automatically that if we get married, she has to come here, okay? So depending on the situation and the person, if the person is like a lead pastor like myself, it's different. But outside of that, you need to have the conversation about where you want to call home. That's going to be the most important thing. Yeah. I'm going to run through these last couple of questions very quickly because our time is up. Is serial dating okay? Well, it depends what cereal you like. Cocoa Pops, cereals, I'm joking. Yes and no. So I don't believe that so if you're going to date different people, just make it known that you're dating different people. So if you're getting to know one guy, and then the next day or a couple of days later, you're going to go on a date with another guy or vice versa, just make it clear to them, listen, I appreciate that you're taking me out, but I'm also just letting you know, I'm also speaking to one or two other people to get to know them. Then you allow them to decide whether they feel comfortable with that or not. They can say, actually, I'm not comfortable with that. I'll let you go and date those people. Or actually, enjoy those dates with those people. And if you want to come talk to me and that doesn't work out, then let's talk. But make your intentions clear. I think it's only a little bit dangerous when you're dating multiple people and you've not made it clear to the person that you're actually getting to know different people. And I think once you get past maybe 2 or 3 dates with one person, really everyone else should be on hold until you know what the outcome of that is. You said finances shouldn't be spoken about till engaged. Why? As a high income earner woman, isn't finance something to figure out early in dating? No, because the two become one. And when you become one, his is hers and hers is his. But you're not one. So why do you need to know how much money I'm earning when we're dating? When we're talking about settling down, when we're engaged, when we're planning for our future, then we can talk about money. Until then, you take your credit card, I'll take my debit card, and we'll continue dating, okay? Of course, you want to know things about, like, if they're working, if they're looking, that's fine. But in terms of specifics and finances, I don't actually feel there's a need for that until you're actually at that stage where you need to plan for a future. There's lots of questions that are coming through now, but our time is just gone. Can your social media team please ensure they tag as many as possible so conversations can happen outside of RM24? Interesting. Guys, so post a post. That's a post. Put a hashtag RMConf, tag us at the church so people can look through the stories, click on your profile. And you know what's interesting? I was saying to someone the other day that if I was single and I was looking for events and places to go, I would use the hashtag feature on social media. I would get involved in online conversations and so on and so forth. I'm not saying I would necessarily DM. I DM'd my wife and then I deleted it only because I found out that I knew someone that knew her and that would be better to go that way. But I'm all for that. So yeah, take a picture if you're looking, hashtag it so someone can see your profile. Take your profile off private for a day or two, okay? Delete some pictures that you don't want them to see, put some other ones up there, and all that good stuff as well. All right, there's a few more questions that come through, but we just don't have time. We're gonna take a short comfort break, a short toilet break if you need to stretch your legs, if you wanna post, if you wanna open up your private profile, if you wanna talk to someone near you.